Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Motor Team Metrics podcast here at TigersMLReport.com. I'm Rogelio Castillo. Alongside me is Chris Brown and Huber. And you can find us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, over on X, on MCB Baseball Pod. And now we're part of the Believe Network. So please make sure you leave us a 5-star review. It's been a while. It just goes a long way. I want to give a special thanks to everybody who donated to our GoFundMe link that we have out there for Tiger Minor League Report. So thank you. That's going to help us a big time. So if I do my math correctly, I'll probably be leaving next Friday, driving solo down to Lakeland, doing the whole road trip solo, and staying with friend of the show, Sherry Cousins, and her husband, some fantastic people that I met along the way. And so,
nice.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So if everything lines up correctly, I just did my car tune-up, and so the car shall be ready for a long trek. Whether or not I'm debating whether or not to get the AAA, but I'm trying to also figure out a halfway spot, because most I've ever driven by myself 7.5 hours. So I've never driven that far before, but nonetheless, pitchers and catchers report on the 14th. And before we get into all that, just wanted to give a quick read to the big game is coming up on Sunday between those two teams that one of them broke your heart. And BetOnline is your number one spot for football odds, stats, trends, and lines, with everything from point spreads to hundreds of player performance props. So if you are looking to see what color Gatorade they're going to drink, that's on there. From dozens of odds from hundreds of sports, events, even politics and entertainment, you can access the world's best wagering information anytime from desktop or your mobile device. So head to BetOnline today to stay updated on all the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So,
well, Raj, I got to report something. I would have lost a bet today. Speaking of bets,
why is that?
The proud name Rogelio took it on the chin today. Here at the middle school where I work, a strapping young lad also named Rogelio. Big kid, looks like he could take care of himself. Got into a little argument with another kid, same age. And Rogelio got the first couple pops in. It was looking good for him. But then the other kid evidently, I found out later, is a wrestler.
Oh, never.
He took Rogelio down with some kind of leg thing. Got on top of him, then he busted his nose and opened up a big cut over his eyebrow for stitches. So 0 for 1 for Rogelio's today. Sorry to report.
That video's got to be online somewhere.
I heard there was a video circulating, so I have not seen it.
You got to go for the sweep. That's what happened. He went for the sweep, and Rogelio didn't see it coming. Yeah, you don't mess with grapplers or wrestlers. There's nothing you can do about it. Once you're down, you are screwed.
Yes.
No, and they tend to be the irascible sort. I remember a couple of years ago there was I think it was a bunch of football players got owned in a bathroom in like Oklahoma by a bunch of wrestlers, and the wrestlers are like 5'8", 180 pounds or 160 pounds, and but they've got the little man syndrome, but also they know all the special techniques to take you down, and that's the last person you want to fight with.
Yeah. So that was the teacher who tried to break it up first. She came sprinting out of her room. She got pushed down, and she went home because she was feeling she didn't really get hurt, but she was a little phased by the whole thing. So ugly moments at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, Ninja B said it best. That is world star kind of behavior. It's every time I see those fights online where people are just filming versus helping, I go on and on about that, but let's sorry for that, Rogelio down in Iowa. So it's even cooler there is a Rogelio in Iowa. I mean, I would just thought that would be the last place to even have that name. So, but we are cash considerations continues its great run here in Detroit as the Tigers DFA Nick Maton, and then he was traded for the Worlds for cash considerations. And it's interesting because I think Chris brought this up, I think on Twitter or something I saw. I'm not sure who brought it up, but the Tigers now, the Orioles have claimed both Tigers guys who have been really just kind of ineffective. So I'm just kind of curious Is there some secret in the sauce they plan on unleashing with Nick Maton and Nevin?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I was. First of all, it's just odd that it was Baltimore, because Baltimore is awash in infield prospects. That's why Joey Ortiz got traded, right? Like they have no room for him. They've got Connor Norby coming. They've got Kobe Mayo coming. They've got I'm forgetting the name of the second baseman, third baseman that they already have up in the big leagues.
Westberg.
They've got Westberg. They've got Jackson Holiday coming. They've got Gunnar Henderson. They've got all these guys, and then they go and add 2 infielders. I guess, technically they both can play a little corner outfield too, with 0 options left, no options remaining. And it seems very odd. And then I was just kind of thinking, like, aside from Jonathan Scope, like Nevin and Maton were the 2 guys last year who seemed to get a strangely long leash. Guys who could have been sit down or whatever, or they didn't, not necessarily prospects, but not veterans where you cut them. And it does make me wonder, because Baltimore's been terrific at developing hitters over the last 3 or 4 years under the Elias regime, that the Tigers and Baltimore both see something in these guys that they think can turn them into quality big league players. And for whatever reason, the Tigers weren't able to unlock it, but the Orioles think they can. That's the only thing I can think.
But my question is, if Nevin's been in their system before, what makes it any different? I mean, is it just them doing a favor again to say, hey, they work out? And
yeah, I mean, I don't remember. How did the Tigers claim Nevin off waivers? Is that how they got him? Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess sometimes you just find yourself like they probably didn't want to lose him, and but they needed to make room. And I don't know. I mean, because Nevin came up, I believe, with Colorado before going to Baltimore.
Yeah. But no, again, there's no. This is now Matt Verling's the only one left, so he is the one that from the Gregory Soto trade. So, and I agree with Cameron in here. I don't see anyone to be able to fix his Maton swing and misses, and sometimes it was really just looked like he was kind of, I don't want to say, well, screw it, I'll say he was hacking up there.
Yeah,
and it just looked, especially when people would get him right on the lower part of the plate on the inside corner. There's nothing you can do. He was exposed, and once the book was out, there's nothing they can really do about it. And there was a couple early moments on in the early part of the season, but again, no one's going to remember that come September or October. So, but yeah, so I mean, it's a again, Dave Dabrowski, just master trader.
Yeah,
just doing that again. So, pitchers and catchers report on Valentine's Day, so that's coming up next Wednesday, and it's already just. We'll get to some of the pitching. We're going to be discussing tonight the non-roster players that got invited to spring training. The TV radio schedule came out, and speaking of third base, we're going to revisit that a little later. And Hinge trying to acknowledge the fact that the Tigers, historically speaking, do go off to a slow start. So I do want to discuss that, because it feels like it was a whole thing in high school or growing up. The Tigers always just notorious for that. And this week is the 20-year anniversary of the signing of Pudge Rodriguez, which I think it is
pretty cool.
Looking at it now, historical in a lot of different ways, because it set the table for everything else to come for the success for the Tigers for the next, I would say, decade plus, if this give or take. So, and again, I remember reading the paper, waiting that when the whole rumors were happening, and you had to wait for the paper the next day. Kind of, I mean, it was still infancy in the internet, but still was still pretty cool, and the moment we'll look at. So, but all right, so we did get some. Like I said, we'll get to the Justin Henry Malloy stuff too as well, because there was a really good article done by our own Jerry that basically stressed patience, but Hinch hasn't mentioned him as part of the long-term plan. So but before we get into that, let's go into the 18 non-roster players invited to spring training, as the Tigers look to, of course, you're going to have your usual abundance of catchers. That's always a thing, but we'll start with pitchers. Drew Anderson, lefty Sean Gunther, who signed last year for the Marlins, Brendan Haffey, Garrett Hill, Grant Hurler, Jackson Jobe, Ty Madden, Devin Sweet, who cleared waivers and is now back with the club, Andrew Vasquez, and Trey Wingnetter, which is just almost the same thing as last year with him. And position players wise, it's, of course, you have your abundance of catchers. So you're going to have Elijah Alfonso, Anthony Benaboom, Donnie Sands, Justice Bigby, Chase Young, Justin Henry Malloy, Ryan Valade or Valde,
Blade, yeah,
and Lai Madras. Yeah. So yeah, and speaking of Justin Henry Malloy, you'll get this chance to see him in spring training, and that will be that'll be interesting how the Tigers will have him out there, whether it's gonna be in the outfield or not. So that's if you see him in spring training getting some starts at third base, well then they still value him in that. But honestly, gentlemen, I'm not really right now with Justin Henry Malloy. Might as well kick it off with that in terms of non-roster invites. I think you guys see him getting time in the outfield at all, or in the infield at all.
I don't think the infield is not third base. I think there's a small chance he might see some time at first base, although he's never done that in pro ball.
Are you saying in the spring or in the regular season?
In spring.
Oh, in the spring. I mean, sure. Put him at third. I mean, settle it once and for all. If he looks like hands of stone and can't move over there, then I mean, but I don't know. I just think that at some point they're going to have to pull the trigger and make him an outfielder, and have it happen. But I would bet he plays a little bit of infield. I mean, there's a lot of spring training ball to be played. If he plays 5, 10, 15, 20 innings at third base, nobody's hurt by it.
Well,
yeah, I mean, go ahead, Chris.
Well, it's something that I know we mentioned last year, and I've talked about it before, that we can't, fielding percentage is not the great sign of how good of a defender you are, but it does, at a certain point, it does tell you something. And Nick Castellanos' worst fielding percentage at third base with the Tigers was .939, and Justin Henry Malloy's with Toledo last year was .897. Worse than Nick Maton's. I think Nick Maton was like .905 or something like that. So, yeah, basically Malloy is 1 out of every 10 balls hit to him at third base is going to be an error, which maybe he's worked really, really, really hard in the offseason and is going to improve that, but there's a long way to go before you're even acceptable at the big league level. Sure. I guess to your point, like, I don't think you give up on it necessarily, but I think if you believe in his offensive ability, then you just find a place to hide him. And that could be left field, right field, DH, whatever.
And Hinch, I mean, mentioned this in the podcast we mentioned this last week in the New York podcast, or the New York Post podcast. Hinch didn't mention him at all, and Harris hasn't really said anything about him since the season ended. I mean, the only thing that was strange to me was that they just put him at third by default the last month and a half at Toledo, where they could have put anybody else there. I mean, the Tigers were rotating. They had a couple guys they signed and came and gone. So there's, I mean, until the call up of Lipsius. I mean, Lipsius should get some consideration at third, but it's not even been mentioned either. So it's
he graded out really poorly in the big leagues last year. I think he was like -5 outs above average in his very limited time at third base, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Justin Henry Malloy also, I mean, I made this is half a joke and is half serious. He's another guy. He seems a future Oakland A. A guy with no position, can hit a little. He goes to Oakland. I don't know if there's anybody Detroit really wants from Oakland, but that would be a pretty good trade partner probably.
Well, one of the or sort of the gist of Jerry's piece about Malloy, which was really good, and Raj mentioned it, was that there's not really, like, it's a worrisome amount of contact in the zone for Malloy. He's got a terrific eye and he takes lots of walks, but when pitchers get him in the zone, he can swing and miss a fair amount. And that's one of the things that, my little side research project about walks is you'll find these guys who can walk a ton in the minors, and you get to the majors, and once pitchers realize that they don't need, like, they'll start off by trying to get you to chase because that's more likely to get you out. And if you don't chase, then they'll come in the zone. And then if they realize they can get you out in the zone, they have no problem doing that. And so I don't know. I mean, there's a reason Malloy, he's kind of a fringe top 100 prospect. I think we saw him in Keith Law. He was just outside the top 100. I think he was on the, just missed on Baseball America, a couple other places. He's the defensive questions are an issue. And there's just, there's some offensive ability there, but there's still a little bit of a question mark if he can get to it.
To me, I rather you have to see it at a consistent level, because one of the questions in here is, does he have the power to justify forcing the bats for his lack of defense?
I mean, it's above average power, right? Like he's a 20, 25 home run guy. It's he's not going to hit 40 or something like that, but there's enough power there to give him some at bats. Yeah,
I mean, you can't really just leave him down in Toledo forever either. It's not like he's a fringe prospect or anything. There's some legitimacy to it, but bottom line is this: I think if the Tigers will tell you without saying it what they think of him if he hasn't been mentioned in a conversation at all, or for that matter. What I do find interesting though is, even as MSU Trey fan citizen here, I don't see him being at first base because of the Mark Canha to play DH or whenever Torque gets a day off. That's true, and we never saw him. Usually, you buy at the end of the year down in the either Toledo or Double A. If they're going to put you in a different position, they'll start doing that at some point, and they never did. So they did. I mean, obviously he played the outfield a little bit, but not first base.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think Lipsius played some first base, and I think Ibanez played some first base.
Yeah,
like a little. But yeah, there's I don't know. So I think they may work him in a little bit just because there aren't a ton of other options. But I don't know. Yeah, he's enough of a work in progress at third and the outfield that they might not want to put anything else on his plate right now.
Well, and he has one big thing that can happen, right? If the 28th ranked offense from last year starts this season looking like the 28th ranked offense again, and he gets off to a good start and is hitting, the bat will write his ticket. Mm-hmm. I'm convinced of that. I mean, whether he's a stumble bum in the outfield or not, and credit for me for using stumble bum because that was kind of fun. But anyway, he can hit his way to the majors. I think that's going to be his ticket, obviously, and he might just do it. I mean, if he gets off to last year, what was he hitting in April? Like 400 for a while, wasn't he? I mean, if he's doing that again and the Tigers are scuffling, what are they going to do?
Yeah, here's the thing too that you guys want to. Okay, I'm going to do some little quick trivia here. Who do you think played the most games or most innings at first base last year in Toledo last year? Just take a guess.
Most innings at first base in Toledo.
Yeah.
Tyler Nevin.
Wrong. What in the fuck are we doing here? Hell, I don't know.
No. Yeah, I'm trying to think who else. Was it Andrew Knapp?
What in the fuck are we doing here? Hell, I don't know.
It was Marco Paparski.
Mike Paparski. Yeah. Okay, so the other backup catcher, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, okay, so then that leads to the next question then. Who do you think played the most innings at third base last year?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Kreidler was hurt most of the year. Malloy, I played the first couple months and the last couple months, it seems like. I guess I would go Malloy.
Yes! Yeah. Justin Henry Malloy played 60 games last year. 60 games at the equivalency of 510 innings at third base. Made 12 errors, had a fielding percentage, as you mentioned earlier, of .897. He played the most innings. Second most innings? Let's take a guess on who played the second most innings at third base last year.
Nevin?
This is actually a very more important question. Chris, what you say?
I said Nevin, but probably not.
What in the fuck are we doing here? Hell, I don't know.
Who'd you say, Uper?
Zach Short.
What in the fuck are we doing here? Hell, I don't know.
Cole Keith, 173 innings.
Oh, well, there you go.
So, just 173 innings?
At third base.
Huh, that's like 20 games.
Yeah, 21. We have 21 games.
Well,
and a fielding percentage of .979 at third base.
Yeah, Cole Keith's got steady hands.
Yeah. But Nevin right there was 157. I thought it'd be Nevin for sure, but I was shocked to see. I thought Tyler Nevin at least had 200 innings over at third base because I felt like every time we were down in Toledo, we saw him play third. But yeah, anyway, that's what I'm just saying. Like it's confusing. that's where I'm just kind of like, you're not even considering him. You're just giving up on him completely because he's played over 500 innings down at third base. So the idea is completely dead. Then what in
the fuck are we doing here?
You know, one of the things that's interesting to me is you can kind of compare Justin Malloy to Kristen Stewart, unfortunately. Now Stewart actually hit for a little bit more power and didn't walk quite as much, but in Stewart's first year in AAA, hit 23 home runs, hit 260. What do I have here? Right here, it's 267, 375, 417. And Malloy last year was 277, 417, 474. So 130 WRC plus for Malloy, 130, or what is it? 138 for Stewart. And you know, Malloy doesn't have the advantage of being a left-handed hitter, which hurts a little bit. But you know, all it takes is one or two injuries, right? And guys get injured throughout the year. Now, you would think that if Akil Baddoo doesn't make the opening day roster, he's going to be the first outfielder up with any injuries, but you never know. You know, Big B or Malloy might just have a monster year in Toledo and force their way into the conversation.
Yeah, and that's good to see. And speaking of Big B, he's going to be in camp too. So that I think puts that conversation together, because what if Big B out hits Baddoo? Does that make him a trade? You know, because they don't really, you know, there's a foregone conclusion that Baddoo won't make the opening day roster, and you're probably correct about that because the way the outfield is stacked right now for the Tigers. But there's also, I feel like there's some sort of sentiment to trade him. My question is why? Because at this point right now, who do you have after Baddoo if something happens? I mean, you're hoping that everything with Riley Green stays healthy, you know, and that's, you know, that's too much of a variable right now. And the Tigers, you know, again, with as much as the data suggests that Big B can hit hard, there's no guarantees that's going to translate over the base on the big league level. And if you look at here's the thing that is startling to me too. I mean, you're going to have the other guy in camp too that's going to probably get a heavy look is Midris, because it was a guy who saw some major league time last year. That's it, though. I mean, the depth beyond that. I mean, if you're looking at the roster at possibly, okay, well, what's going to look like the outfield look like in Toledo right now, outside of Baddoo? I mean, you have a Baddoo, Big B. You could probably go with Madras, and probably more than likely Ben Malgeri. Trey Cruz might get a chance to start, but those guys are not ready for the next level. So that's where your depth in the outfield is. And yeah, and Winfield Perez is still there on the 40-man roster. But again, you would think that he would get an invitation to camp. Oh, duh, he's on the 40-man. Duh, never mind. I'm an idiot.
I mean, the point is well taken, though, is after Parker Meadows and, you know, Riley Green, there's not really a true center fielder on the roster or on the 40-man. Baddoo was the only one who's had, you know, significant amount of time, and he's really the only other true outfielder. The other options are, as Karen mentioned, Winslow Perez. Ryan Kreidler has played a little bit of center field, I think, but I mean, those are natural, you know, infielders, utility guys. So
right. I think you're looking at Vierling and Ibanez too, who plays center field.
Yeah, Vierling can play center field. There's no reason to trade Baddoo. You don't have to. He's got another option. I'm sure it's not going to be a ton of fun for him to be in AAA or whatever, but for the team, the organization, it's probably the best thing to keep him around.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things too about, I mean, Steph Stevenson's, he hasn't even seen time at Erie yet, so can't even consider him for that position at this point.
Max Clark.
I mean, that would be, yeah. I mean, Tiger fans would get so jacked up for that, but but as far as where Clark goes, I mean, if Clark's going to probably more likely start the season at West Michigan.
No, he'll be in Lakeland.
He's going to be in Lakeland?
Yeah, he'll be in Low A, right? I mean, like he and McGonigal had 2 weeks there last year.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I forgot the small sample size.
I mean, maybe he comes out and looks like a monster in spring, and they're willing to push him, but that doesn't seem like Scott Harris's MO, really.
Yeah, they're going to be conservative. Yeah, you're right. They're going to be conservative with it too, because you know what's funny is I was looking at some of the just minor league guys who are still in the roster. Although this can't be right. So Cole Turney and Cole Turney's still on and Austin Schultz there's no way they're
Cole
still.
Turney they got last year. He was an undrafted free agent, I think. Schultz was a 2021 draft pick.
Yeah, maybe I'm more shocked by Schultz than anything.
Yeah, because Turney had that weird story. He's like 25, 26, but he had went to like 4 different schools and then set records. And I think he went to the same like D3 school that Mark Connor did.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
but yes, YouTube user asked if he said Clark was bad in low A with a tiny sample, right? Yeah, I mean, yes. Theoretically, he walked like 20% of the time and struck out like 25% of the time, and then didn't hit much. But there's not a whole lot you can take from that. I was looking at his exit velocities and stuff earlier today, and they were well above average for a 18-year-old.
Yeah, we can take that away. But no, it'll be interesting even too where another guy to consider too, possibly for the outfield, is Eddie Leonard, because he's also on the 40-man roster. So as far as him being on shortstop at the infield, I think he was serviceable, but there's the stone. Sometimes he does have a little bit of a hard time transitioning the ball over when he throws. I mean, in terms of stone hands a little bit, but other than that, that's another guy you have to consider too. But the reason why I didn't bring up Perez is I thought last year when Lipsius came up, he would get a chance to get called up, but he ended up staying in Toledo. But that back injury he has still is a mystery. I mean, that's I think the big consideration.
He had a monster August, I think, and then I think he got hurt again in September, and that was it. That he missed out his chance.
Yeah, and that's typical. That's like the second straight year too, where Winfield Perez had a monster second half of the season, just absolutely tore the cover off the ball. And what's unfortunate last year too is that he showed that he can handle the outfield. I mean, he showed a really good arm out there, showed decent range, and that kind of hinders him. So I'm not sure entirely what's happening with him, and we haven't really heard much about him. But yeah, he missed 2 weeks at the beginning of September, and then because he came in August and he played a little bit of second base here and there, but it was primarily either in the left field or center field. So, but go ahead. What are you guys gonna say? Something?
Oh, I say MSU Detroit fan mentioned that he said he also mentioned Hao Yu Lee, who's he's expecting in West Michigan. It's one of the things we're going to do, I think, in the future, relatively near future, is go through all the minor league rosters, because there are about 20 infielders that they need to find playing time for in between low A and double A, and it's going to be really fascinating to see how they do it. I mean, Max Anderson, Kevin McGonigal, they grab John Peck, they have Christian Santana, you mentioned Hao Yu Lee, Luke Gold, Isaac Pacheco. There's
Gage Workman's still in the organization.
Workman's still in the Jarvis that they drafted last year too. They got Carson Rucker. There's and then Hao Yu Lee. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and especially in the rotation side of things too. That's going to be fascinating, because it looks like Toledo and Erie are going to be stock. Before we move on, though, I did find it interesting that people assume that Myers will be back. He'll be in the starting rotation. That might be true, but he's coming off. He hasn't, in terms of let's look at this for a perspective of innings, right? Would you both agree that the Tigers are cautious with innings with their pitchers? Safe to say.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Okay,
I think,
all right.
There's a level of caution there, and I also think that there's kind of a strong belief in the third time to the order penalty or whatever. I think that Hinch is very much aware of his starters when they get to that third time to the order. He's quick with the hook.
So, as far as most innings that Mize has thrown in one season was 150. That was 2 years ago. Okay, so last year you're looking at a rotation that the most innings thrown outside a guy by the name of Eduardo Rodriguez was two different guys in Joey Wentz and Michael Lorenz threw 105 innings last year. I understand. I know injuries aside, but this I think will become a new norm. You're going to see 7 to 8 different guys starting. So the idea of a Haas going out there, it's strange to think that the most innings we might see in one pitcher from a Tigers pitcher this year might be 140, 150 innings tops.
I think I'm trying to look. Reese Olson between AAA and the majors had 100 and 140. And I think Gibson Long was probably fairly close to that. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. 150 innings is probably the most we'll see from any one pitcher.
And Scooble's career high is what? $149, right?
Was that 2 years ago as well?
Yeah, that was 2 years ago as well. Yeah. So I just don't. I want fans to be cautious. Wow, that's not a word. Cautious when it comes to assuming the guy's just going to go rip it out there. So that's again, and then after that, Scooble pitched 117 innings in 2022 before his injury.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, I mean, and there's some people like YouTube user out there who's saying that he's not convinced if Mize is a lock to pitch well and miss bats even when healthy. I'm with you. I hate to say that as much as I'm not rooting against him or anything, but when his split finger's good, it's good. I mean, but it's just I haven't seen enough to merit him being like this ace guy so far.
Well, I'm not sure if you saw there was a small I don't even know what you would call it on Twitter a couple days ago where I think Tigers Torquemada had discovered Mize had some video on his Instagram of him throwing a bullpen or whatever. And it was just, one pitch and he was hitting 92.8 or whatever with like 4'8" extension. And so people were like, what's going on here? And then I was like, it looks like he's thrown for flat ground. And then we determined that it probably wasn't flat ground. It was probably just a terrible mound. But people were like, boy, if he's throwing that hard, but it's February 6th or whatever when we saw it. Like I'll be worried if he's throwing that hard on April 6th. I think he's probably just fine right now.
And I saw that back and forth. And my question is, my statement would be, let's hope that was a flat mound, because if he's pitching on a quote unquote bad mound, what the hell is he doing on a bad mound?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you know what? I mean, honestly,
What in the fuck are we doing here? Hell, I don't know.
No, it's sorry, that's one of my I'm putting some new drops in this year, and that was what I heard and I really liked. Anyway, you're right. What are we doing here? What the hell are we doing here with that then? I mean, but then again, remember everybody freaked out a few years ago when Michael Fulmer was coming back and his velocity was like 91, 92 in spring training. Like, it's over. And it didn't happen that way.
Yeah, and it took him a while to finally let loose, and then it was like, all right, well, he did let loose, and then it was like, all right, well, this is more of a reliever look anyway. But yeah. I mean, I think Deadly Ninja Bees asked if we had ever seen a healthy Mize, and that's a good question. I mean, there were injury questions about him coming out of high school. There were injury questions at college. There were injury questions when they drafted him, and what we heard about his elbow, right, was that it wasn't a torn ligament. It was just basically like a limp rubber band that had been stretched too far.
Stretched ligament. Yeah. The year before his big final year at Auburn, right? He was great until the end, and he kind of sucked. He wasn't great the last few starts of his last year at Auburn, but he had done enough where he was going to be 1-1. The year before, he'd been shut down, and at the time I was worried about that. I was that didn't sound good to me. I wanted Jared Kelenic. Well, that hasn't worked out too good either. So, what are you going to do? But you would like to think that with your former 1-1 coming back from a Tommy John surgery, which we know has a decent outcome for a lot of people, that we'd be pretty excited. But instead, everybody's kind of leery and weary about it. So, he can answer a lot of questions, in March. We'll see what it looks like, but it's really up in the air right now. And
we remember Chris when he was out in Erie and he missed some time, and that all got really mysterious when he shut down the rest of the season down in Erie. And that was under they were blaming the facilities and all that stuff on there. But again, it's just this is the guy who threw the most innings he threw in college, by the way, if in case you were curious, 114. And that was that monster year where he went 10-6, struck out 156 and 114 innings pitched.
So no hitter.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it'll be interesting to see. I just as far as Mize will have thrombolytitis.
I don't know what that is, but the thrombolytitis that I would consider is more of an attitude thing, and Mize does not have.
No, he seems like a good guy, 100%. Yeah. But I'll go back to what we talked about when he was pitching for the Tigers, and his fastball has just never impressed me as a pitch that he can get a lot of outs with, because I always thought, just watching on TV, batters had to feel comfortable against him. It just didn't look like he's the kind of guy who's going to scare anybody. His fastball just looks soft to me and puffy. What's the word I put on it?
Puffy.
Yeah,
Nice. I like that.
Like it's just kind of it's got decent velocity, but it's just kind of sitting there asking to be hit.
A kind of floater, in other words.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't disagree with that. It was fastball was never his best pitch. It was more like the knuckle curve or the slider and the splitter, right? But he's had about 2 years to kind of remake things, right? And we saw that Jackson Jobe was able to change the shape of his fastball last year, and I think Skubal has done that too. I think that the Tigers organization, as it stands now, is pretty well suited to help guys. You might not be able to get Mize an elite fastball with carry, but they'll find something unique about that fastball and accentuate it to make it work, I think. But we'll see, right? Like, I don't know. Watching him pitch will be one of the most, I think, intriguing things to look forward to this spring training, honestly. It's been so long.
Yeah, this is, an organization, too, that starting to maximize the change up. We saw that in the farm system last year. So maybe there's something else they could go with his fastball. So, real quick, the TV, as I mentioned earlier, the TV radio schedule is announced. So there will be 6 games on television, which is pretty lame, but it is what it is. But also as thank you, by the way, props to Cameron who did the show notes. Cameron, true MVP today. You have earned you are the essentially Cameron is the executive producer of the show, bar none.
Yeah, he does all this work and then doesn't come on to talk. Which is
He's the guy behind the scenes.
Why are you working so hard?
Yeah, special shout out to Cameron. Like, seriously, Cameron is the real MVP, and I want to give him a lot of credit for the last 4 days. I've been working till almost 8 o'clock at night, pretty much in my day job, and also writing some articles too over at MCB. I just did a article on, we're doing the top 30 over there, and I did an article on Dylan Smith. So, but Jed says 6 games is good. Stops me from watching 30 spring training games and being bored by opening day. That's true. And then Jed, Jed, you're never the type to buy into the narrative of man, but this guy's hitting 412, and so he should be on roster. And yeah, Jed's not like that at all. At least.
How about this with Jackson Jobe getting the invite? How many outings do you think we see him with a big league club behind him in spring?
It's funny. I was guessing that earlier in the Discord, and I said 3 or 4. I think Hinch will get him out there, and Hinch is really smart about this stuff. He'll get him on TV at least once, I think.
Yeah,
for the fans to see and for Jobe to get that experience. But Hinch is also coaching the big league team, right? I don't think this is 2007, 2008, Jim Leland, Dave Dombrowski, Jackson Jobe's probably coming north with the team.
Yeah.
But I don't think Hinch in Harris are going to work that way. I think Hinch is going to get him out there, get him some experience, tell him, good job, kid, and keep working.
Yeah. Now get your ass back to Erie.
I agree with that. I think that, that's kind of the Justin Henry Malloy syndrome where, the team going nowhere last year kind of would have made sense. Some of those issues we talked about, seeing what Malloy could do, get him out there last year and see what it was, but they obviously weren't going to do that. So it makes sense that would probably lead to a good suspicion of Jackson Jobe going the patient route.
Yeah, I don't want to be a dead horse with it, but I was kind of miffed that had I known what they were going to do with some of these players not coming back, you would have wondered why didn't they bring them up. But it is what it is. There's nothing we can't go and do the what ifs anymore. But it does worth mentioning because Toledo. I know Toledo's trying to get a postseason spot, but I really think they were too out of it at that point. Every team in. I know Norfolk was going to win the title regardless. Norfolk was so stacked last year, the Baltimore Orioles affiliate. But Toledo was really out of the. I don't think realistically. I'm not trying to diss the Mud Hens, but I don't think the Mud Hens were really in the playoff contention as close as people thought they were. So,
and I think we haven't seen them put guys in the 40-man very often unless they had to. They put Meadows in the 40-man because they were going to have to anyway. They did it with Green, and they've done it with Colt Keith right before, like a year before they needed to. But those are pretty rare occasions, and so I think that all things being equal, they're like, we don't have to call him up, and so we're not gonna. Also, it's different now without the fully expanded rosters with only like 28 guys. They still are going out there trying to win games, and so who'd they bring up? They brought up Meadows. They brought up Diaz. Was that it? I'm trying to remember who else they got.
That was it. Diaz, Lipsius.
Was it Lipsius? Yeah,
Lipsius.
That sounds about right. Yeah. So, yeah.
But speaking of which, though, I do want to, before we get into, by the way, Jason Benet's first game calling the Tigers is going to be March 4th. So, but then again, as somebody else mentioned too as well, between other networks, we're going to probably see more Tigers baseball elsewhere, whether it be MLB Network, NBC Sports, or whichever bundle they're going to come up with. Which I saw the news this week that is it Disney, Fox, and Time Warner, I believe, are going to have some sort of sports streaming. So again, just bring it back. Just bring back cable. Just please, just bring back cable. I mean, really,
what in the fuck are we doing here? Hell, I don't know.
Seriously, it at this point, just make it easier for everybody, and just put on one damn thing like it was before. Because all you're doing is they're just slowly grinding you back down and saying, "Hey, remember cable? Yeah, we're bringing it back. Yeah, because screw you guys. You thought you can cable cut us? No, screw you." It's ridiculous. But although what was ridiculous, and this is where I wanted to get your input on this. So Cameron did a really good job with these graphics, and I want to make sure I get these graphics shared because it's projection time, and the PECOTA projections came out. And so this is the one for the AL Central. Your Tigers coming in at 74-87 with Minnesota winning the division again. Minnesota winning the division, Cleveland finishing second. Did I miss the boat on Cleveland here, gentlemen? Did Cleveland do anything that I was unaware of? I mean, Cleveland's a good team, don't get me wrong. But I don't know. I'm just kind of a little miffed about this.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, the way these things work, right? That's like the 50th percentile outcome, right? So they run however many hundreds or thousands of simulations, and that's kind of the one in the middle. Cleveland has a good rotation.
Yeah. I mean, does PECOTA really like Tanner Bybee and Gavin Williams? Do they see a big year 2 leap for those two? Maybe not. I don't know, but I'm just saying that would be something they could hang their hat on.
Yeah, new manager smell is definitely going to be. But for the Twins, I mean, oh man, Stan with the best comment of the night. PECOTA's bullshit. Yeah, and see, this, I'm with Jed right here. I don't see who the projections are like on Cleveland. It's Jose Ramirez in a AAA lineup. He's absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
I'm looking at it and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, what am I missing here? Even though Cleveland's bullpen is not as strong as it used to be. So I don't know. Minnesota, same thing. Minnesota had more subtractions and additions. I mean, they did do that trade. They traded Polanco. I don't see them winning 88 ball games either, though. I see Minnesota right in the middle of the pack, maybe similar. I see them with Cleveland around 83 games. But I mean, I don't know. I was just a little miffed on this.
Well, with Minnesota was actually one of the biggest underachievers last year by like Pythagorean wins losses. Right, they were supposed to win, I think, 93 and won 87. They now they lost a lot of talent, but they do still have. They've got Lopez and Ryan, and I think Chris Paddock is coming back at some point. Yeah, and they added just DeSclafani, and so they've got there's a workable rotation in there. And you've made the point that one of the big things with Polanco is making room for Edouard Julien, who had a great rookie, kind of cup of coffee. So I mean, there's talent there, and Cleveland, for as much as like we don't think there's much offense there, they have a bunch of good players, like 2 WAR players that. Ramirez is the MVP level talent, but Stephen Kwan has been a consistently above average player overall, even though he's not, he's got like 2 home runs. But Jimenez has been a good player. The Nailers were both pretty good last year. So there's some talent there. I think that the ceiling for the Tigers is higher than these projections suggest. But as I think I pointed out to Lynn Henning disagreed with these rankings too. He thought closer to 85 wins, and I said, I'm leaning towards 80. And I think the problem with projection systems for the Tigers is that the Tigers are relying on like the two most volatile subsets of players, young guys and injured veterans. So like, if everything goes right, and Skubal comes back and he's good, and Maeda is healthy, and Flaherty is healthy, and Manning and Mize are healthy, and Riley Green reaches his potential, and Spencer Torkelson takes a step forward, and Carpenter and Rogers do what they've done, and Colt Keith steps up, and Parker Meadows, like all these things, if they all happen, Tigers could win 90 games. It's just, that's going to take a lot of pixie dust to make all that happen at the same time.
I do like what Detroit Degenerate said right here. So it's going to come down to April, and you're 100% correct. Because if the Tigers get off to a slow start, it will screw them over, quite frankly. And that's where it's hurt the Tigers numerous times. And sometimes the fast starts screw over the Tigers. I mean, we saw that a couple times during the Jim Leland era. So I think if they can hold above water, do well in division, then I think they'll be fine.
We talked about it a few weeks ago. Other than the Rangers, the Tigers' schedule in April, not that bad.
No.
You see the White Sox, you see the Twins, you see the Oakland A's. The Mets are not that scary, really. There's teams they can beat in that first month. And if they can win 1 out of 3 against the Rangers, why not have a good month of April?
Yeah, one of the things I was looking up earlier today, actually. So since Hench came here to Detroit, the Tigers are 25-49 in April, and averaging just over 3 runs per game, 3.06 runs per game. They've got to figure out a way to get off to a hotter start. I don't know if it's the weather, or if they're not getting enough plate appearances for their regulars in spring training, or if it's just kind of the randomness of baseball. But yeah, you got to come out of April close to 500 at least to. It just, it sucks these last couple of years. We're like, well, there you go, 10 games out, like 8 games out in April. It's tough to come back from that.
So Fangraphs was not that much favorable to Cleveland. They had them a game under 500 with Minnesota just winning the division. And what I like about Fangraphs' projections is they put the chance of the postseason, wild card, and the strength of schedule too, which is pretty cool. They both have, although I think they have the Royals more favorable than Baseball Prospectus did, which is ironic.
They must believe in Michael Waka and Seth Lugo.
Their YouTube user is cracks that's a good comment there. He said blame in the cold, please, because that's always, although it was 60 degrees in February today in Metro Detroit. I saw people outside, of course, scrolling through their phones. I thought it was ironic. They were scrolling their phones sitting on the porch, but they were outside. They were outside doing something, and I would have sworn around the block from me I heard a lawnmower going. I'm not kidding. Maybe they were running the gas, not 100%, but it was crazy to see. But yeah, Fangraphs has the Tigers at 79-83 with chance making the postseason at 26%. They even got Cleveland, or they even got the Royals at 10%. So there you go.
The Royals numbers there shock me. Really, it does, because that was a 56-win team last year.
Yeah.
But they made an effort to get better. So Fangraphs looks like a semi-believer.
Yeah, I mean the Bobby Witt deal too. You got to feel all pumped up that they're investing in the future, and
Vinny P's coming back, right? Pasquantino's coming back. You go get some pitching.
They added bullpen.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, people make fun of the AL Central because none of the teams are spending money, and I think the White Sox have the highest payroll actually. But it's the way it is, and yeah, it wouldn't. I mean, I'd be shocked if the Royals came out and won the division, but it wouldn't be like the world's biggest surprise ever, right? It wouldn't be like the 91 Braves or whatever it was, who went from, was it 90 Braves? I don't know. They went from last.
No, it was a 91. It was 91 Braves.
91,
yeah. It was 91 Braves went they went from worst to first, and they won the NL West. Yeah, yes, believe it or not, folks, the Braves were in the NL West at one point.
I'm sure that's happened since, but that was the only one. That was the one I remember because I was a Dodgers fan at the time, and I was like, I'm worried about the Reds, not the Braves. The Braves are going to fall off, and like, whoops, the Reds, the Dodgers, and the Braves were all in the same division.
Isn't that crazy to think?
Yeah. Those are the days.
Imagine, I mean, I'm thinking about the plane fare for the Reds. I mean, you have to go out to the West Coast to play the Dodgers. I mean, I just can't imagine. If you think about how many teams were, so we talk about the 1990. I just got to do this real quick. I mean, I know I'm getting sidetracked, but I'm interested to see, as far as teams that are west over the Mississippi. If you're looking at the standings at the time, this is 1990. So you have the only team, every team in the East it's Pittsburgh, New York, Montreal, Chicago, Philly, and St. Louis. Cincinnati is in the West Division with the Dodgers, Giants, Houston, San Diego. You have 3 teams in California, and then the Atlanta Braves. And I mean, the Braves are in the same time zone as you. It's just. I mean, even like the American League West, the White Sox that makes somewhat sense because they're in a central time zone. I mean, but the man. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
So the Braves went from 65 and 97 to 94 and 68 in 1 year.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
So here's how the zip projections work out for the Tigers. They have them at 77 and 85 with the Guardians and the Twins tied for the division. The postseason chances for the Tigers are at 17% with a wild card percentage of wild card.
A World Series win.
Sorry, World Series win. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. World Series win at 0.5. The World at 0.2. And everybody's crapping on the White Sox 66-96, and rightfully so, because it's gonna be a long year for Chicago.
In a divided country where nobody can agree on anything, everybody thinks the White Sox are going to suck. I'm glad we can come together on something.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the one that would surprise me. If they won the division, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, if they that'd be funny if they band together just to spite people. That'd be funny.
So the major league.
Yeah, they'll definitely the major league plot twist to it. But yeah, but it's I love projections. I mean, everybody gets so fired up about them, and we all know that at really, as cliche as it sounds, at the end of the day, still have a game to play. So,
well, there's still quality free agents on the market. There's still trades that are going to happen. So projections, you just got to take a grain of salt and see what happens here.
Yeah, as of right now, there was also a good debate that Chris was involved in earlier on Twitter about Matt Chapman, who still hasn't been signed. And I know that I think Cameron was the one that posted about whether to have Andy Baez that started at third. Quite frankly, we're going to see the platoon situation, as Hinch mentioned, but I'm fine with it because I'm not giving Matt Chapman 4 or 6-year deal. I'm not doing that. Why? Because if you have Young, who will start the season at Toledo, or who knows? But here's the thing: even Hinch mentioned that Young could see some time at third base this year.
Sure.
Yeah, it's I think there's been this feeling that the Tigers are just leaving third base as a gaping hole because they didn't add anybody who specifically plays third base. They brought up Cole Keith, but he seems like he's going to be their second baseman. He may play some third base. But one of the things we pointed out before is there's a lot of addition by subtraction there. The third base last year was really dragged down by Nick Maton and Nevin and Scope. They put like -2.5 WAR last year, whereas Veerling, McKinstry, and Ibanez together combined for an okay performance. And it's a little bit much to ask them to do that again or to be a viable third base platoon, but it wouldn't shock me if they end up being roughly as good as Matt Chapman overall. I think Chapman would be a pretty immediate upgrade, and anytime you can get one player for 3 or doing the job of 3, that's a bonus. But yeah, I mean, the main issue with that is that Matt Chapman deserves and should and is wanting a multi-year deal, right? Like he probably wants a 5, 6, 7-year deal, and that's where the issues come for the Tigers because they don't want to. I mean, there's a lot of markers there that suggest that he's going to have kind of a rough fall in the latter half of that contract. So, and I don't think the Tigers want to tie themselves down with anything like that. I'm still. I guess I've been skeptical about Jace Young at every step of the way. So why stop now? I still am a little bit doubtful that he can play big league third base at an adequate level. We'll see. Like we've said many times, he's got the hands and the glove for it. I didn't think his arm was anything special. Other people have said it is. And I just don't know if he's going to have much more than kind of like, one step and fall down range.
What are you going to do with what are you going to do to quorum the Alex Bregman? Because as soon as Jose Altuve on that extension, so I'm sure there's people going, well, they're going to have enough money for Bregman. Is it coming to Detroit? So that clock is still ticking somewhere for some fans, but we'll see what happens. Like it's I do like and Bass has a really good idea here. Bass said the rotational third might be able to be pulled off. Let's see. Let's keep it rolling with the hot bat guy. It worked for Sparky. Why not again? So yeah, and in his YouTube user pointed out, Correa wanted a huge long-term deal for a few years ago and didn't get it. So I'm not treating Matt Vernley like a redhead stepchild, Stan. I'm not. He's part of the root. He's part of the platoon. So that goes along with. I mean, I think that goes without saying. I mean, he's gonna be part of it. So we'll see what happens. But I want to mention real quick the Caribbean World Series. We haven't really talked about it at all. There was a no-hitter tonight as Angel Perón threw a no-hitter against Nicaragua. It's been hard to find the games, so I've been catching highlights here and there. The Dominican Republic beat Panama, and I saw that I think Jericho beat Puerto Rico yesterday, I believe. So I thought that Puerto Rico.
I admit I haven't been paying a ton of attention. I see a lot of fun highlights on Twitter, but I tend not to pay too much attention to the games. But yeah, I did see the no-hitter. And they said it's the first no-hitter there since when? 1952?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
I was looking at tickets and how expensive they were down there. And you talk about third-party tickets. Yeah, that's some prices are going up to like $600. So but there is talks that Houston is going to offer Bregman an extension. So it's in the works.
Well, yeah, I mean, they just extended Altuve, right? So
yeah,
I would be surprised if they let him go. I really do. I think they're going to keep that core. They're going to milk that core a long time because it's a pretty good core.
Yeah, I mean, they have a decent third base prospect whose name escapes me right now. But that's Bregman. Yeah, Bregman and Altuve. I mean, they let Correa go, but they had a decent, at least defensive replacement for him. I don't know. I mean, I just think if I were Houston, I wouldn't be letting Alex Bregman go. But I don't know. We'll see. The Tigers fans can hope.
By the way, the Tigres de Licey, which is the Dominican Republic team, because the Caribbean League is essentially the best of the Winter League teams, the champions of the various teams that made it there. So they're in the final. They'll play the winner of the Turco Suns or the Tiburones de la Guerra. Wow. Tiburones de la Guerra, which is the Venezuelan team. So, but no, Bregman has been talked about with that as getting an extension from Houston. So, I mean, if they Tucker and Alvarez, I mean, you can probably get another. I don't say they'll grow on trees or anything, but it's hard to find once in a generation. I don't say generation, but finding really good third baseman. Look at Detroit as a prime example of that.
They Houston, I think, already extended Alvarez. I thought they did. Looks like he's a free agent after the 2028 season. So they've got him through 2028. Kyle Tucker, I would think, would be a free agent in another 2 years or so. But again, yeah, he's a free agent 2026. So this year, next year, and then he's a free agent.
All right. Let's see here. But I was looking at something. Sorry, I was looking at something else that was going on. The O's claimed another infielder today.
Who?
And Livian Soto from the Angels.
Okay.
Juan Soto.
Yeah. He was their 16th, according to MLB pipeline. He was a 16th ranked prospect. So I thought that was strange. They got another.
Well, he still has options. So
yeah.
Maybe they're going to trade a couple of those guys we named earlier, the top prospects for Dylan Cease here coming up in the next 24 hours. Who knows?
That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, it is essentially now we're getting to the point where some of these guys might not even see a deal till the end of spring training that are out there. So Solaire's still out there. Clayton Kershaw just re-signed with the Dodgers. Garcia for the Rangers signed a 2-year extension, but beyond that, it has been dead quiet when it comes to that. Any particular last season or off-season activity.
I saw a little report this week linking the Giants and Solaire. We'll see if that happens. But I saw one guy made a good prediction today, and it makes so much sense. We know it. But the Blake Snells and the Jordan Montgomerys, don't you see that as a classic place where Dombrowski dives in late, adds a big name? I could see that. I could see Snell in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, I saw something today about the Phillies kind of discussing Emmanuel Clase, a trade, but that they supposedly didn't want to part with Justin Crawford, Carl Crawford's son, which is Dave Dombrowski speak for. We love this guy. We really value him, and then you get more somehow for the deal, and then you trade him immediately because you didn't like him at all.
Yes.
You know what? I mean, if I would never play poker with Dave Dombrowski, never. I mean, you wouldn't pay me. I mean, it'd be cool to sit in a room with a bunch of baseball executives, and I'd probably be crapping my pants. I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time, it would be intimidating to go. He's there going, "Hey," and all you would have to do is literally just look at me and just give me a weird look and just something like to the effect of just pulling this face. I'm sure you've seen him do this. I mean, he just goes, "Listen, I'm just gonna steal your money. I'm stealing your money." What could go wrong? Listen, I'm just stealing your money, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I was just thinking, I think the only 2 position player prospects that he's never traded away were Nick Castellanos and Rafael Devers. I think those are the only 2. I think everybody else who was ever kind of a prospect and played a position got traded. Moncada, Garcia, Adames, Suarez.
Sure.
Yeah,
Cameron Maben.
Maben, yeah.
According to John Morosi and Mark Feinstein, the Phillies are a team to watch as the offseason winds down.
I think that's what I wrote. I think that's what I was referring to. That Feinstein sounds right.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? I'm Dave effing Dombrowski. I'm gonna take it. It's just that simple. And every time I see this picture, I just think of, I just like robbing you in the middle of the night kind of thing. Like, I'm just gonna take it while there's one. That's my favorite. Jed, once he has a polo on, he's up to something.
Yeah.
Right.
Or the turtleneck. He also has that turtleneck. But it's just one of those things where there's so many. You could do like a whole thing of David Dombrowski pictures, and it's fantastic. I mean, Anyway, Dave Dombrowski, if living legend, that'd be a guy I would love to get on the podcast one day. I mean, that would be very intimidating. But and then you just look back a couple shows and just go, "What are you guys doing? Posting random pictures of me here? What's going on? What are we doing here?"
I've never heard him provide any actual insight. He's a very cagey guy. In any interview, even he'll talk about stuff, but basically the leaked audio about the players being awful. That's the only time I've ever heard Dave Dombrowski be honest.
Yeah.
You try to trade these guys or something.
Yeah. Every time he talks to the media, even when I saw him at Big B Coffee in Southfield many, many, many moons ago, he was talking to the barista. He wasn't saying anything that would get him in trouble. He would get his big ass jacket on and even right here, look at this picture right here. It looks him telling you you know what? Our farm system's not that good, but I'm still going to rob you. That's what I'm going to do. My eyes are just going to tell you it's going to happen. All right. Enough of that carried away. Okay, so do we have any other questions when I get to?
We
this
talk about
evening?
Pudge.
Oh, Pudge, yes, thank you. So I did want to mention the Pudge Rodriguez signing this week 20 years ago, and how important that was, and how much it set. Speaking of name, speaking, it's just speaking of which, might as well just have him up here the entire time. But that was a big deal, and I don't know about you guys, but that felt like for the first time as a Tiger fan following the team then, that Detroit was actually, I could take Detroit seriously again as a team to watch. Because at that point, by 03, I was so fed up. And not that I wasn't paying attention. I was always still paying attention. I was still doing my fanaticism with it, but I just was over it. And when I saw that the rumored, I didn't get too excited at first, but then I thought there was some legitimacy. When there was more and more legitimacy behind it, then I got a little bit excited. But man, that was such a cool moment.
You just remember, he had just been the World Series MVP, right? And he was
he was the MVP of something that postseason. It may have been, was it the World Series?
Either way, he was instrumental in Florida, right? And he hits the open market, and no one's interested. It was almost like going back to the collusion in the 80s. And how does that happen with him? And I was living in Minnesota at the time, trying to follow that as close as I can. Thinking, after all the misery we've had for the last several years, they could really bring in Pudge Rodriguez. It just made no sense. But for some reason, Mike Ilitch decided that was the year that he was going to get up off the mat and compete. And then they put a major league face on that horrible team from 2003. They brought in Pudge. They brought in Rondell White. It didn't work out, but they brought in Vina, who was a pro, and somebody else I think I'm forgetting. I think there was a fourth one.
Was it Percival?
I think he was a year later.
Jason Johnson.
Yes. But either way, I mean, all of a sudden, I remember the first week of the 2004 season, the Tigers were playing the Twins, or at least it was early in the year. And the Twins announcers, because I was living over there, so I had them on. They were all talking about how the Twins players were saying, that looks like a real baseball team this year, which is what they thought of the year before when the Tigers had 43 wins. Nobody took them seriously. All of a sudden, in one off season, putting Pudge and Rondell White on that lineup made them a legit team. And it showed pretty quick. And it was, it just started things back in the right direction. And Mike Ilitch got a little taste of what it might be like to succeed, and I think he liked it.
Well, and I think to show you what a different world it was, wasn't his deal 4 years and $40 million?
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like chump change now. I mean, it was 20 years ago. So, but I think that was even a fair amount less than Maglio got, right? And Maglio had, I feel like Maglio was like 70 million or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but
575,
something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we talked about the other day, like, yeah, that was kind of the what happened afterward. You can then point back to Pudge Rodriguez as being kind of the moment where things change. But I still, I maintain that it was all those good trades that really helped. It's Rondell White. I distinctly remember feeling very bad for him playing. He was playing so hard, and I think he dislocated his shoulder diving for a ball in Kansas City, maybe, and like ended the season. I'm like, it sucks. He was really trying hard. He was a good player. Just and then the following year it was all magic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's a funny season, as I recall. I mean, obviously I was around for 84, and I was unbelievable. But since then, the 2006 season, this is the surprise of it all. Getting out 76 and 36 was just. How do you not enjoy every single day of that as a baseball fan?
And that's where there's moments like this when if you're watching us live on YouTube, you get moments where you see Al Kaline, who at this point, I mean, he was as a team advisor, but he sat through a lot of bad baseball too. I mean, he was on TV as a broadcaster with George Kell for. I mean, he got the 84 Tigers and got the 87 Tigers, but then he was in there when we're talking the Felipe Lira, Jose Lima, the Debbie Cruz days at shortstop Tigers, and so he witnessed a lot of bad baseball. And to see Pudge right here with a Hall of Famer like this was made it worth it. Absolutely, and this is one of those. This picture's pretty. I'm surprised this picture's not shared more often, but this is a moment like this where you bring in the past and bring in a guy like Pudge who had the cachet to get it done. I mean, I remember didn't Brandon Inge get upset they brought in Pudge too? That was the thing that changed my mind about Brandon Inge as a player. That you're upset that your team is getting a Hall of Famer.
Did he get upset about that, or did he get upset about having to go back to catching? I thought it was maybe both.
Yeah,
but because he had been a pretty damn good third baseman, and I thought that they put him back catching later, but maybe I'm mistaken.
It's all hazy now.
Yeah.
Now, what was it? The first year that Pudge came in skinny, or was that his second year?
I think that was
up in Florida, and all of a sudden he was a shadow of himself.
No, I think that was either second or third year, and I also happen to believe that was there was at the time people were like, "That's interesting. They've instituted the official drug testing policy in Major League Baseball, and Pudge has dropped 20 pounds."
Exactly.
Yeah, because the first year was his best year. I think it was his last great offensive year as a player, even. And then the second year was 2005 when the Tigers hosted the All-Star game and had the Futures game with Verlander and Zumaya in it, and then Pudge, made it to the finals in the Home Run Derby. So it was a fun time.
Yep.
Yeah, the good old times. It's yeah. I mean, I think there's going to be good times to come to. It's not. We're not going to get too overly optimistic, but nevertheless, yeah, it was a good piece of history to remember because it put the Tigers in a different, as Uper said, a legitimate baseball team. No more Gene Kingsdale days either. Man, there's some of it.
Omar Alvarez.
Yeah, Eddie Bonine. Remember Eddie Bonine?
Oh, Eddie Bonine came. Yeah, he was. He threw a knuckleball occasionally.
Yeah. My favorite obscure Tiger of that time too was Warren Morris. Played one season in the baseball. He was really known for having a game-winning hit for LSU.
Yeah.
And then
World Series. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, college baseball begins next Friday, a week from tomorrow. The college baseball season begins, and reminder that your Detroit Tigers have, I believe, the 11th pick in the draft, but I don't know if it gets moved up to 10th or not because of the whole Washington National. I don't know how that works, but I think it's the 11th pick. It's a pretty college-heavy crop this year.
Eddie wants who has it better than us because they have 17 good pitchers. Cleveland's got a pretty good rotation too. Can't really
Dodgers.
Yeah, the Rays.
The Tigers, like Chris rattled off the names earlier. If they have enough of the guys fall on the good side of the ledger with health and comeback and performance, there's enough there to compete in this division. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
It's just how do you count on it? Looking at we're sitting here on February 8th. We'll see.
So, was it Deadly Ninja Beast said, which shortstop should I be watching? I think the number one shortstop people are looking for this year is Seaver King, who is a transfer to Wake Forest. But the only question there is it's another one of those things where is he a shortstop, is he a center fielder, is he second baseman? I don't know if there's like a legit. This is a strange year. I guess JJ Weatherholt is going to be playing shortstop for West Virginia. He hasn't done it yet. He's been a second baseman, and he's considered like one of the three best hitters in the draft, so he wouldn't be there at 11 anyway. But yeah, it's not a particularly strong draft class.
The team to watch too.
Yeah, well, they've got Nick Kurtz, who could go first overall. They have Chase Burns, who transferred there from Tennessee, who's got a ridiculous arm. So yeah, they're the number one team in the country right now,
and for a reason too. I mean, that pitcher is insane. Mm-hmm. So the Tigers retired number 33. Isn't Cole Key's playing number 33 too? So maybe
retire it right now, immediately.
Yeah,
Cole put his name on the brick wall.
He gets that Rookie of the Year. We'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah. If he last 33 that I remember that was good, his town was Grant Hill. I'm probably missing somebody, but I can't think of anybody in a Tigers uniform.
I am. There are certain people, sports fans. I think we talked about this before. Certain sports fans who pay attention like crazy to jerseys and to numbers and stuff like that. And for whatever reason, that part of fandom just escaped me 100%. There are people out there who are yelling about the Tigers, the D of the Tigers uniform. It's not the way it used to be, and I'm like, what? They changed it? Like I don't look at it at all. I don't look at unless the uniform is god awful ugly. I don't even notice them.
Yeah.
But I know there's certain fans who are like, the numbers just. I couldn't have told you what number Grant Hill is. I don't know if I can tell you any numbers for Tigers.
No, I mean, I know he's joking aside with that because the hype behind him and everything, but it's just. I'm like legitimately made me think. What was the last number? Good 33 in town.
I'm looking now at the best 33s ever. You got Larry Bird,
yeah,
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
I thought he was 30. No, that's right. Yeah, he was 33. Magic Johnson was 32. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, Scottie Pippen, Frank Robinson.
Frank Robinson was 33.
Apparently, Patrick Waugh.
I thought Frank Robinson was number 20 when he was in Baltimore.
This may have been. Let's see.
Reds.
Yeah, I don't know when they're showing him in a Reds cap in this. Patrick Ewing, Patrick Waugh, Eddie Murray, Tony Dorsett,
Eddie Murray,
Craig.
Eddie Murray, Baltimore, or Eddie Murray, Lions.
Baltimore. Yeah.
All right, so he did wear number 20 so Frank Robinson wore number 20 in Baltimore. And he was 33 with in Cleveland. His one season in Cleveland. I'm sorry. Yeah, he was one season in Cleveland. Or I'm sorry. He spent multiple seasons in Cleveland. But I think it was the year he was a player manager, maybe. I'm not 100%. I can't remember that. But anyway.
Well, there's Grant Hill, Vita Blue. Yeah, interesting.
And
here's a question I have for you guys.
It's
now February 8th. Between now and opening day, do they have one move in them? Let's put the line at bigger than a Zach McKinstry trade, whether it's a signing or a trade. That's your over-under. McKinstry.
I'm going to say no.
I'm kind of leaning that way too, which is sad. There's some good players out there, but yeah.
Yeah, to Eddie's point earlier, they do have a lot of pitching, and that was one of my things I said immediately when they signed Flaherty is they're going to trade somebody, but I think they're just going to let attrition happen and then be content to have big league quality arms in Toledo that they can call up whatever they need.
So the question was, are the Tigers going to make a trade before the end of spring training? Is that
just a trade kind of move or signing for a player that we would all view as more substantial than McKinstry or less? I'm
gonna go with Chris here and say no. Yeah. If they would have, I think there would have been something by now, or the chance that maybe a player that they were targeting, or if they favor in another system, suddenly becomes available. But I sincerely doubt it. The Joey Ortiz dream is gone. I mean, that was gonna as soon as that trade for Corbin
Burns.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some interesting free agents still out there that aren't necessarily like you wouldn't think would cost you a ton of money and might you could find a way to play them. Like we talked earlier about the lack of legitimate outfielders. Michael A. Taylor, I believe, is still out there. Like if they want a glove first center fielder who can provide some value, and in case Parker Meadows doesn't work out, but then I don't know. I think they're pretty content with the way the roster is right now. We'll see what happens with injuries in spring training.
It is interesting to see that Michael Fulmer just had a minor league deal with the Red Sox. You know who hasn't signed yet, though?
Spencer Trimble. Yeah, and Fulmer, I believe, is out all year, right?
Yes.
So they're just trying to, get him for the following year, theoretically. Yeah, I mean, but there's so many, like we said, there's just so many big league talents that haven't signed yet that there's gonna be a lot of, people who think they're big leaguers settling for minor league invites or spring training invites with a minor league deal.
But I mean, again, to anybody who really knows that situation Turnbull, this might not come as such a surprise. So at that rate. All right, we're out of time. Thank you so much for listening to the Motor City Metrics podcast. more than likely, probably in the next couple days or so, you're going to probably see some stuff from us on the Tiger Minor League Report. And more likely, there'll be one more show before I hit the road next Friday. So hopefully everything lines up correctly. If you want to donate again, or if you want to donate, period, if you have not yet, here's a GoFundMe link. It's on our YouTube. I just put in the comment section, and it's pinned on the Tiger Minor League Twitter. So thank you again for everybody who has done it. I really appreciate it. It goes seriously so much. It means a lot, and it helps us all out. So I'll be going next Friday, and hopefully, depending on how everything lines up, I'll be gone Friday and just kind of pace it out from there. So because full camp starts on Monday the 19th, and I want to be there for that because that's when, pitcher of the cat. It would be nice to get there early next week, but just the way my work schedule has been, it's been a little crazy. But yeah, we'll be, as far as, I'll probably be doing a show from Lakeland, so that'll be something that will take place, but I'll have to figure out the logistics. I'm not sure if I can take all my gear, so more likely it'll be Chris producing the podcast or running the sound, if you will. But
so we'll see how that goes.
Put the bat signal out for Cameron that night.
Yeah. Well, it'll be 70 degrees, so it might be. I think they have a pool, so
nice.
Who knows? I might do a poolside to be a dick, but I'm not gonna do that. That's mean. That's
no, that's fine.
Yeah. But have a good weekend, everybody. Enjoy whatever you're gonna do for the big game, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good night.
Good night.